All right, so
Yeah.
I want you to picture a scenario for a second. It's Monday morning.
Okay.
You walk into your office, your ministry, your nonprofit, whatever it is you lead, and you get some news. Your mission, it's just doubled.
Overnight.
Overnight.
Yeah.
Double the people, double the demand, double the reach.
You know, for most leaders, that sounds like the absolute dream scenario.
It is.
That's what we pray for. It's what we write our strategic plans for.
Exactly. We crave that kind of growth. But here's the question the source material poses, and honestly, it just stopped me cold.
Right?
If that happened tomorrow, would your infrastructure actually handle it? Or would the whole thing just collapse? Because everything bottlenecks around you.
And that is the question that keeps a lot of leaders awake at night. And it points to what our sources are calling the quiet crisis.
The quiet crisis. I mean, it sounds a little ominous, doesn't it?
It is.
Like something lurking in the background.
It is. Because it's usually invisible until it's far too late.
Yeah.
The crisis facing so many organizations today isn't a lack of vision. It's not even a lack of funding, usually.
Right.
It's a bottleneck of leadership. We have these huge visions that have completely outgrown the people who are supposed to carry them.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a mentorship for multiplication. And look, I know mentorship can be a bit of a buzzword.
Yeah, everyone says they do it.
It's on every corporate value statement. But the material we're covering today argues that, well, most of us are doing it wrong, or at least we're doing it way too slowly to keep up with the mission.
We tend to see mentorship as a nice to have.
Yeah,
You know,
a soft skill.
a soft skill, something you do when you have some extra time on a Friday afternoon. But this deep dive is really about reframing mentorship as a survival level strategy.
Okay.
It's about shifting from just accumulating followers to actually reproducing leaders.
And that leads us to this concept of the illusion of success. I found this absolutely fascinating. The source is under you can have a packed room, a big budget, a full calendar, and still be incredibly fragile.
That's the trap of addition. And we celebrate addition constantly.
Lots to learn.
More programs, more attendance, more seats filled. That looks like success from the outside. But if all that activity depends on one charismatic leader or a tiny core team, the whole structure is hollow.
So addition is, it's about outputs. It's what we can produce right now.
Right. It's linear growth. 1 + 1 = 2. But multiplication, well, that's about reproduction. It's about building people who can then go on to build other people. It's exponential.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy from the source material that I really loved. The lighthouse versus the network of lights. Visually, this just clicked for me.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
So picture a massive lighthouse. It's standing alone on the coast. It shines brilliantly. It's impressive.
Sure. Everyone looks at it and says, wow, look at that light.
That is the superstar leader model.
Precisely. And it's effective, don't get me wrong, but it's incredibly vulnerable. What happens if the bulb burns out, or the power fails, or the lighthouse keeper gets sick?
The entire coastline goes dark.
Total disaster.
Ships crash.
Now, contrast that with a network of lights. Imagine the coastline is lit not by one massive tower, but by, say, hundreds of smaller lights, each one capable of shining on its own.
They might not be as blindingly bright individually.
No, probably not. But they're networked. If one goes out, the coast is still safe. That's multiplication. You aren't building a monument to one person's capacity. You're building a resilient network.
And what's interesting here is that the sources don't just treat this as modern management theory. You know, this isn't just something from a business journal. They argue this is actually biblical DNA.
It is. I mean, if you go all the way back to Genesis, the very first command to humanity, the cultural mandate, was be fruitful and multiply.
And that was never just about biology.
No, not at all. It was about filling the earth with the image of God. It's a vocational and a spiritual mandate. God's design has always been about a fruitfulness that ensures continuity. I mean, if the work ends with you, were you really fruitful?
There's a specific verse the source keeps circling back to, 2 Timothy 2.2. They basically present it as the mathematical formula for this whole concept.
It really is. Paul writes to Timothy, he says, "And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others."
It sounds so simple, but when you break it down, there are 4 generations in that one sentence.
Exactly. You have Paul, the mentor.
Right.
You have Timothy, the apprentice. Then you have the reliable people Timothy's supposed to train.
Okay, that's 3.
And then you have the others that those people will teach.
4 generations. And here most of us are struggling to think past the next fiscal quarter.
That's the difference, you see. Paul wasn't just trying to get a job done. He was building a chain of transmission. If that chain breaks at Timothy, the whole mission stops. The goal wasn't just teach Timothy, it was teach Timothy how to teach others.
So if that's the philosophy multiplication over addition, how do we actually do it? Because the sources are pretty critical of our modern classroom approach to leadership. We love a good seminar.
We do. We love the download.
Yeah.
Get everyone in a room, lecture for 3 days, give them a nice binder, and call them leaders. But the sources point to Jesus as the master mentor. I mean, think about it. Jesus had 3 years to save the world. He didn't start a university. He didn't write a curriculum.
He said, come and follow me.
He started with proximity. He invited 12 ordinary guys into his life. And they didn't just hear his sermons. They watched him eat. They watched him sleep. They saw how he handled conflict.
Yeah.
They watched him pray.
This brings up that idea of incarnational leadership. Leadership is caught, not just taught.
Right.
You just can't teach character from a PowerPoint.
It's the difference between a class and an apprenticeship. In a class, I tell you what I know. In an apprenticeship, you see who I am. And that progression, the source outlines, is so vital here.
Okay.
I do, you watch. Then I do, you help. Then you do, I help. And finally, you do, I watch.
That transition from I do to you do, that's where most of us get stuck. We love the I do part.
Oh, yeah.
Or even the I do, you help part because, hey, free labor.
Right? Having an assistant is great, but that shift to you do, I help, it's painful.
Why?
Because it's so inefficient. It's faster for me to just do it myself than to slow down, watch you fumble through it, and then have to correct you.
So efficiency is the enemy of multiplication.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Jesus wasn't efficient. He took a long, long time with those disciples.
Yeah.
He let them make huge mistakes, but he was effective. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want a legacy, you have to slow down.
The sources bring up 2 Old Testament case studies that illustrate this proximity really well. First, Moses and Joshua. I've always pictured Joshua as this warrior general, but the text points out he started as Moses' aide.
He was his shadow.
Yeah.
And the key insight there is that Moses didn't shield Joshua from the difficulty.
That's a huge temptation for leaders today. We want to protect the next generation.
We do.
We give them the fun tasks. We don't let them see the budget crisis or the angry emails.
We sanitize the experience. But Moses let Joshua see the messy, heavy reality of leading a stubborn people. Joshua saw Moses intercede. He saw him face down in the dirt. He saw the burden. And that's how Joshua developed the spiritual calluses he needed to lead the conquest later. If Moses had protected him, Joshua would have just crumbled under the weight.
Then you have Elijah and Elisha. And talk about proximity, Elisha basically stalks Elijah.
He refuses to leave him. Elijah keeps saying, stay here, I'm going on ahead. And Elisha just says, as surely as the Lord lives, I will not leave you.
And this leads to that famous double portion request. Elisha asks for a double portion of Elijah's spirit. I think a lot of us read that and think, wow, ambitious much.
It sounds so arrogant to our modern ears. Like he wants an upgrade.
Right.
But culturally, the double portion was the legal inheritance of the firstborn son.
Right.
Elisha wasn't asking for more fame. He was asking for the responsibility to carry on the family line, the prophetic line.
Yeah.
He was saying, I want to carry the weight that you are carrying.
And Elijah tells him, essentially, if you stick with me until the very end, you'll get it.
That is the cost of proximity.
Yeah.
Elisha had to leave his farm, his family, his entire livelihood, and just follow this erratic prophet around. He had to be there for the gritty, unglamorous moments to be ready for the mantle.
If you want the mantle, you have to endure the mud.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have the philosophy multiplication, we have the method proximity. Now let's talk architecture, because the source makes a really strong point that hope is not a strategy. You can't just hope leaders emerge organically from the mist. You need a pipeline.
Exactly. And a pipeline isn't about bureaucracy, it's about intentionality. The source suggests a good pipeline does 3 things: identify, connect, and continue.
Okay, let's start with identify. This is where I think most organizations get it wrong right away. We look for the spark.
We look for charisma. We look for the person who commands the room, the extrovert, the obvious talent. But the source is very specific here. We need to stop looking for charisma and start looking for faithfulness.
Faithfulness, not the loudest voice, but the most reliable hands.
Precisely. Charisma draws a crowd, but faithfulness builds a legacy. That verse in 2 Timothy says, entrust to reliable people. You want the person who shows up early to set up chairs. You want the person who follows through on the boring details. That is the raw material for multiplication. If you build on charisma without character, you're just building on sand.
Then comes the connect phase. Within this architecture, there's a debate I often hear: group mentoring versus one-on-one. The source actually argues that we need both.
They serve different functions. One-on-one is essential for deep discernment. That's
Yeah.
where you deal with private correction, specific character flaws, what the source calls spiritual direction. You can't really do that in a group setting. It's just too vulnerable.
But groups have a superpower too.
Resilience. In a group, you realize you aren't the only one struggling. And the source notes that wisdom circulates laterally in a group. It's not just top-down from the expert. It's iron sharpening iron among peers.
So it's not either or.
No. If you only do one-on-one, you create dependency on the mentor. If you only do groups, you miss the specific, hard conversations. You absolutely need both to build a healthy pipeline.
There's one resource in this architecture section that I think is totally overlooked: the alumni.
Yes, the spiritual ancestors.
We usually treat former leaders or people who've moved on from a program as, I don't know, finished chapters. They graduated, but bye.
Thanks for your service.
Right. Which is a huge waste of capital. These are people who have lived the experience, they have the scars and the stories.
And the source argues we need to reconnect them as guides. Imagine a young leader struggling with burnout and being able to talk to someone who held that same role 5 years ago and survived. That bridge of wisdom is invaluable. It turns your past leaders into your current assets.
So we've built the pipeline, we're doing the apprenticeship, but now we hit the hardest part. And honestly, this is the part that made me wince a little reading it.
The inner work.
Yeah, specifically the cost of release.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. We can learn all the skills of mentoring, we can build the spreadsheets for the pipeline, but the barrier usually isn't skill, it's ego.
It's the fear of being replaced.
It is. It's that deep primal fear that if I train you to do my job and you get really, really good at it,
Do you still need me?
do you still need me? Or worse, what if you end up being better than me?
The source quotes John the Baptist here: "He must increase, I must decrease." And, that is a beautiful sentiment for a framed print in your hallway,
It is.
but it is a tough pill to swallow for a leader who's used to being the main event.
It requires a fundamental shift in how we view our roles. We have to move from ownership to stewardship.
Okay, unpack that distinction for us.
Ownership says, this is my ministry, my position, my podium, I built this.
Mm-hmm.
Stewardship says, I am holding this for a season. My job is to care for it and then hand it off in better shape than I found it.
So the goal is different.
The goal of a steward is to be surpassed, not just succeeded.
So past, that's a heavy word. You actually want the person you train to eventually do it better than you.
That's the definition of success and multiplication. If your ceiling becomes their floor, you have succeeded.
Yeah.
But that requires a death to self. It requires what the source calls spiritual parenthood.
Loving without control.
Right. I mean, think about parenting. You invest years of your life, your money, your heart into these children. And the goal isn't to keep them in your house forever. The goal is for them to leave.
The goal is independence.
Right. And sometimes part of that independence involves them making mistakes.
And that's the other part of the cost. You have to tolerate failure.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
If you control everything to prevent failure, you prevent growth. The source points to Jesus restoring Peter. Peter failed spectacularly. He was a PR nightmare.
A total disaster. Denied him 3 times.
If Jesus were a modern CEO, Peter would be fired for brand risk. But Jesus didn't fire him. He used that failure as a crucible to forge Peter's character.
Failure is a tool. That's a sticky note for the mirror. If we shield our mentees from failure, we're actually shielding them from growth.
Exactly. We have to be willing to let them try, fail, reflect, and try again. That's the I watch phase of apprenticeship. You're there to catch them, but you have to let them jump.
So, what does this all mean for us? We've covered a lot of ground, from the theology of multiplication to the architecture of pipelines to the gritty reality of letting go.
Well, I think it comes down to a shift in the central question we ask ourselves. Most of us wake up asking, what can I achieve today? Mentorship for Multiplication asks, who can I raise up today?
It's shifting from being the hero to being the hero maker.
That's it. And look, the source material ends with a very specific challenge. And I think it's important we pass this on directly to you, the listener, because it's so easy to hear all this and think, okay, I need to restructure my entire organization, and then get overwhelmed and do nothing.
The one-person challenge.
Yes. Don't try to mentor 10 people. Don't start a massive program tomorrow. Just commit to mentoring one person intentionally in the next year.
Just one.
Just one. Find that faithful person, invite them into your life, let them see how you work, open your books, share your failures. If everyone listening did just that, just one person, the multiplication effect would be staggering.
It reminds us of the ripple effect. The source mentions that we are all just links in a chain.
Think about it. You are only here listening to this, knowing what you know, because somebody, somewhere, invested in you. Maybe it was a parent, a coach, a pastor, a boss. Someone took the time. You are the fruit of someone else's multiplication.
The question is, are we going to break the chain or are we going to add a link?
Precisely. Buildings crumble. Programs get canceled. Budgets get cut. Even the most successful organizations eventually fade. But people, souls, that is eternal work.
Yeah.
That is the only thing that actually lasts.
I want to leave everyone listening with this final thought from our reading, because it really did stop me in my tracks. It asks this: if you stepped away from your role tomorrow, just walked away, would the mission collapse because you're gone? Or would it multiply because of who you left behind?
That's the ultimate test.
It really is. Thanks for diving in with us. Now go find your one person.
Get to work.